Imagine for a second that you are me, that I am you, and that you are giving this TED Talk. In fact, there are also 9 brilliant, inspiring individuals who are sharing this virtual stage with me at today's TEDx event. Imagine yourself as any one of them. What would you be saying? What great idea would you be sharing? What story would you be telling? Because I know for a fact that you have one, and that it's just as interesting as anyone else's here. But what I don't know is why you would rob us of the opportunity to get to listen to it. I think you should give this TED Talk. Now, this might seem a bit unorthodox at first, but my goal today is to convince you to do just that. Okay, so what do I mean? Well, hopefully, in the next 10 or so minutes, I will have successfully persuaded you to take up some form of public speaking or communications activity. Don't worry, I'm not going to go on and on about how it's going to help you articulate your opinions or divulge your interpersonal emotions or engage in intellectual discourse. You've all heard that before. And although it is all true, I'm still not going to do it, at least not at first. Instead, I want to talk to you about something you haven't heard much of before. Me. So, hi, I'm Alex Lee. And roughly 11 years ago, I first immigrated here to the United States with a single Korean mother who, to this day, can barely speak and understand English. Neither of us knew what to make of this new world. I'll admit it. I was terrified. I was terrified of school. I was terrified of being away from the rest of my family. I was terrified of Americans, who, to be perfectly frank, still kind of terrify me sometimes. Granted, though, it wasn't my first time moving. In fact, I've gotten to live in 4 major super cities of the world before the age of 10. Seoul, where I was born, Beijing, New York, and Los Angeles. As a result, all my life, I've always been forced to deal with constant change. I've always had to reconcile with instabilities in life. I've had to try to find some semblance of certainty in the most uncertain of conditions. Despite all of that, though, I was still a fairly shy and reserved kid. In fact, one of my mom's favorite stories to tell is actually about my very first public speaking class. It was at a place called Wilshire Academy, which would later become my second home. But apparently, she says I ran out an hour early with tears streaming down my face. I hated it. The teacher was strict, the students judgmental, and speaking out loud to them was frightening. And so I begged and begged for my mom to take me out of the class, and she did, thankfully. At least, she did until a few months later, when she totally betrayed all of my trust and put me back in that class again. Maybe you're thinking, here's his redemption arc. Here's when it's gonna finally click for him. Here's when he's gonna end up loving it. Yeah, I ran out crying again. I told my mom, please, not again. And thankfully, she obliged. Until yet again, a few months later, and now you see where this is going, I somehow end up back in that class. Well, as it turned out, the third time was indeed the charm, and I forced myself to get through the 2 hours, holding back tears the entire time. And the rest is history. Now, I don't personally remember any of this, either because I was far too young or because I've psychologically pushed out the utter trauma of it from my memory. But I think I can safely say that forcing me into that classroom, not once, not twice, but 3 times, was the best thing my mom has ever done for me. Aside from, birthing me and feeding me and putting me under a roof and taking care of me and, okay, yeah, my mom's done a lot. But this was a tremendous moment for me. Because the people I ended up meeting in the speech and debate community have since changed my life. I found friends and family and teammates. I found mentors and role models in older students and adults. I found parental figures in teachers and coaches. I will forever be indebted to this community for embracing me as one of their own, for taking me under its wing at a time when I felt so vulnerable and isolated, for sculpting me into the person I am today, and for giving my life meaning and greater purpose. Now, I can already hear the exasperated sighs from some adults who might have just heard that, but it's genuinely true. And of course, I can't promise that you'll have the same life-changing experience as I have. But nonetheless, I think I can guarantee it'll be worthwhile. So, you've heard enough about me. Why then should you take up public speaking? Well, in true debater fashion, I've prepared a couple of arguments here today for you. Let's begin by getting the material incentives out of the way. Obviously, the plastic trophies are nice. And sometimes, if you do really well, you'll get these hefty, real metal ones. Here's a picture of the ones I have displayed at my house. My mom's thrown the majority of them away at this point, so these are mostly just from major tournaments. Other competitions will give you large scholarships or academic opportunities for performing well. This is me at the Reagan Library, after having won $7,500, as well as an authentic replica of President Zelensky's Freedom Medal. Fun fact, there's only 8 of these in the world, by the way, which I think is incredible. And last but not least, sometimes, if you win, you might get a Louisville Slugger baseball bat? Yeah. So here's us after winning the biggest tournament of the year, Nationals, just about a month ago. But aside from trophies and awards, there's also the traveling, right? I've gotten to fly out to Fort Lauderdale, Louisville, Dallas, pretty much everywhere in California, and even some international locations as well. My friends actually put together a vlog from our most recent trip to Louisville, Kentucky, which is also where I suddenly, surprisingly, got super TikTok famous. Yeah, one of my teammates posted this TikTok after we won the championship, and it got 1 million views and 200,000 likes since. So if internet fame is what you're seeking, then there's that, I guess. But none of this, so far, is the reason I truly love speech and debate. Okay, then what is the reason? Well, what about the skills I've acquired and the education I've gained as a result? Because across hundreds of debate topics, everything ranging from NATO-Russia nuclear war to a federal jobs guarantee versus a universal basic income, to whether or not true love exists, and even to the nature of ontological identity versus epistemological doctrine, and everything in between. I have spent thousands of hours meticulously researching all that there is to know, strategically crafting all that there is to argue, and rhetorically writing all that there is to convey. I have had the privilege of advocating for my beliefs, communicating my ideas, and sharing my personal story as I am with you today. And with regards to my education, well, public speaking is the reason I've been granted the extraordinary gift of spending the past 7 weeks of my summer vacation here on campus at Harvard University, studying law and international relations with graduate students. This is actually my dorm here. Public speaking is also the reason I'm able to attend Harvard Westlake, a really great school in California, on a scholarship. But that still isn't the reason I love speech and debate. You know, the funny thing about public speaking, and this is something that took me 8 years to realize, is that you might start out doing it for yourself. Maybe you're trying to win some competitions, maybe you're trying to become more confident or social, maybe you're just trying to find a new hobby, what have you. And maybe it even stays like that for a while. But at some point, your voice, the one you've trained and developed, becomes much more than just that. At some point, it stops being the thing you use on a stage to merely win an award, and instead, it becomes a stage in and of itself, the platform on which others can tell their own stories. Because in a weird kind of way, I've been able to speak up for people like my mother, to fill in for the silence every time a store employee greets her, to fight for her experiences as a Korean immigrant and single mother in America, and to realize for myself the opportunities she never really got as a child. Look, I've competed in speech and debate for nearly a decade of my life now. And looking back in retrospect on the hundreds of tournaments I've been to, for the vast majority of them, I couldn't tell you which ones I won or which ones I lost. But what I can tell you about is each and every one of my coaches. I can even remember most of the people who have judged me and given me oral feedback in a round. What I can tell you about is each and every student I have personally taught, coached, and watched grow over the years. I distinctly remember their glowing faces reflecting sheer pride and joy when they went out and won their first tournament. What I can tell you about is each and every friend I have made. I can remember them as if they went to my school and lived next door on my street instead of being halfway around the world like they are in reality. So, whoever you are, wherever you may live, whatever you may do, and whichever one of the reasons in this speech might have compelled you, I won't judge. I implore you to try. I hope I've persuaded you to at least look into this activity. If not for yourself, then for your children. I hope I've convinced you of just how beneficial, transformational this can be. Because for all my years of debating, this is truly the one argument that I hope I didn't lose. Thank you so much.